Trump's latest trade tantrum with Canada has spectacularly blown up in his face.
Well, thank you very much, everybody. It's an honor to have the Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, who I have made very popular. He's an extremely popular Prime Minister, and I'm very honored to do it because I liked him. Right from the beginning, I've liked him, and we've had a good relationship. We have some natural conflict, but we will probably work that out. But we've had a very strong relationship, and your hosting of the various countries that showed up, that was a beautiful job you did, and I appreciate it very much. We're going to be talking about trade. We're going to be talking about a lot of different things. We'll certainly be talking about Gaza. We're in very serious negotiations to, I guess you could say, depending on the way you count, 3,000 years. You could say 500 years. You could say, but that it's been raging for a long time. And I think there's a possibility that we could have peace in the Middle East. It's something even beyond the Gaza situation. We want a release of the hostages immediately, etc. And so our team is over there now. Another team just left, and other countries, literally every country in the world has supported the plan.
Yep.
I don't think there's anybody that hasn't, actually, not that I've seen. But there's a real chance that we could do something, so you may have some questions on that later. But in the meantime, we'll spend some time and we'll make some deals and we'll do some things that are good for both of our countries. And Mark, it's an honor to have you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. If I may, you kindly hosted me and some of my colleagues a few months ago, and I said at the time, you are a transformative president. And since then, the transformation in the economy.
And the world just witnessed exactly how desperate he's become. While Trump tried to project strength during his meeting with Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, what we actually saw was a president scrambling to save face after his tariff strategy has devastated American businesses and left him begging for a deal. Let's break down exactly how Trump's own trade war has turned into his biggest political nightmare. The meeting at the White House on Tuesday was supposed to be Trump's moment to show dominance over America's northern neighbor. Instead, it revealed a president who has painted himself into a corner with his reckless tariff policies. Trump has slapped punishing levies on Canadian goods, 35% on general imports, 50% on metals, and 25% on automobiles, thinking he could bully Canada into submission. But here's what Trump didn't count on. His own strategy would hurt American businesses just as much, if not more, than Canadian ones. What makes this situation particularly embarrassing for Trump is that Canada isn't just any trading partner. It's America's largest supplier of steel, aluminum, and uranium. These aren't luxury goods that Americans can easily do without. These are critical materials that American manufacturers desperately need. When Trump imposed these tariffs, he essentially shot American industry in the foot while trying to aim at Canada.
More complicated maybe than any other agreement we have on trade because, we have natural conflict. We also have mutual love. We have great love for each other. I love this. I love Canada and the people of Canada. And Mark feels the same way about here. The problem we have is that they want a car company and I want a car company, meaning the U.S. wants a car company. And they want steel and we want steel. And, so in other countries, they're very far away. And there's no problem. You can compete and you can do. We don't like to compete because we sort of hurt each other when we compete. And so we have a natural conflict. It's a natural business conflict. Nothing wrong with it. And I think we've come a long way over the last few months, actually, in terms of that relationship. So when it comes to trade, the United States was always giving everything. They gave everything to Canada. They would let car companies leave here and go to Canada. But that hurts the United States. And, other presidents didn't see that. They weren't business-oriented. They might have been good politicians in some cases, not in all cases. They were bad at both. But it's a very natural conflict, and it's something that we're working on.
Mr. President, Canada has offered a lot of compromise this summer. Are you willing today to offer some compromise to Canada, maybe on steel and anything else?
Well, we've made compromise, and we've made...
The result? American companies are now paying billions more for essential materials, costs that are being passed directly to American consumers. During the meeting, Trump tried to spin this disaster as some kind of natural business conflict, claiming there's inherent competition between the two countries because both want the same industries. But this reveals Trump's fundamental misunderstanding of how trade actually works. Countries don't compete in a zero-sum game where one nation's success means another's failure. Successful trade relationships are built on comparative advantages and mutual benefits, concepts that seem completely foreign to Trump's primitive understanding of economics.
Complicated maybe than any other agreement we have on trade because, we have natural conflict. We also have mutual love. We have great love for each other. I love this. I love Canada, the people of Canada. And Mark feels the same way about here. The problem we have is that they want a car company and I want a car company, meaning the U.S. wants a car company. And they want steel and we want steel. And, so in other countries, they're very far away. And there's no problem. You can compete and you can do. We don't like to compete because we sort of hurt each other when we compete. And so we have a natural conflict. It's a natural business conflict. Nothing wrong with it. And I think we've come a long way over the last few months, actually, in terms of that relationship. So when it comes to trade, the United States was always giving everything. They gave everything to Canada. They would let car companies leave here and go to Canada. But that hurts the United States. And, other presidents didn't see that. They weren't business-oriented. They might have been good politicians in some cases, not in all cases. They were bad at both. But it's a very natural conflict, and it's something that we're working on.
Canada has offered a lot of compromise this summer.
The most telling moment came when Trump admitted that negotiations are complicated, a stark admission from someone who promised he was the ultimate deal maker. This is the same president who claimed he could solve any trade dispute with a phone call, who boasted about his negotiating prowess, and who promised Americans he would win so much they'd get tired of winning. Now, months into his trade war with Canada, Trump is admitting he's in over his head. Carney, meanwhile, played this perfectly. Rather than getting drawn into Trump's theatrical displays, the Canadian Prime Minister remained calm and professional, emphasizing areas where the two countries could work together. While Trump was ranting about competition and conflict, Carney was talking about cooperation and mutual strength. This contrast couldn't have been more stark. Trump looked like an amateur next to a seasoned leader who actually understands diplomacy. The economic data tells the real story of Trump's failure. Canada's unemployment rate has risen to 7.1%, the highest in 9 years. But this isn't the victory Trump thinks it is. American businesses are suffering just as much from these tariffs. Steel-dependent industries in the United States are facing massive cost increases. Auto manufacturers are struggling with supply chain disruptions. Energy companies are paying premium prices for Canadian resources they can't easily replace. Trump's desperation became even more obvious when he started talking about his bizarre fantasy of making Canada the 51st state. This isn't the behavior of a confident leader who's winning a trade war. This is the behavior of someone who's run out of actual solutions and is resorting to absurd publicity stunts. When your trade strategy has failed so completely that you start talking about annexation, you've essentially admitted defeat.
Everything that we've tried was wrong, it seems, because we seem to be in a bad position right now. And the Prime Minister going down to see Mr. Trump, it's going to be a difficult after discussion because Mr. Trump will take what he wants from it. He'll say that Mr. Carney is a very nice man and I like Mark, and he'll say all those lovely platitudes, but he's also going to point out once again that Canadian economy is hurting and that he's stealing business from us. And the reason why that is so difficult for us in Canada is it introduces uncertainty into investment in Canada. It's not just the tariffs, Vashi, that are hurting us. It's the fact that other companies are saying, what's next for you guys up there? What else is he going to do to you? And quite frankly, the risk associated with the uncertainty around Canada, we may as well just work with the United States directly. And that's the kind of impact it's having now. It's not just on the tariff industries, it's on everything that you could possibly think about. Just like the announcement today, 25% on medium and heavy duty trucks.
The timing of this meeting also reveals Trump's weakness. He's facing mounting pressure from American businesses, governors, and even Republican senators who are demanding relief from these self-imposed tariffs. The domestic political cost of Trump's trade war is becoming impossible to ignore. American farmers are losing export markets. Manufacturing states are seeing job losses. Even Trump's own supporters are starting to question whether this trade war is worth the economic pain.
Surely, after promising to negotiate a win, to have a deal by July the 21st, the Prime Minister's not flying all the way to Washington, D.C. just to have lunch. By the sounds of it, that's all they are going to accomplish, Mr. Speaker. We've seen since he promised this win, American tariffs on Canada have doubled. The Prime Minister has caved on counter tariffs, on the digital services tax, and on everything else, and 86,000 Canadians have lost their jobs as a result of his weakness. Surely the Prime Minister will finally keep his promise and come home with a win. What will it be?
The Honourable Minister responsible for Canada-U.S. trade.
Mr. Speaker.
Carney understood this dynamic perfectly. He didn't need to make threats or ultimatums because he knew Trump was already feeling the pressure from his own failed policies. Instead, Carney simply had to wait for Trump to realize that continuing this trade war would be political suicide. The Canadian Prime Minister's confidence throughout the meeting wasn't arrogance. It was the confidence of someone who knows their opponent has already lost.
You need to have a little balance here. Otherwise, you're going to be the laughingstock of the world with some of the tariffs that you're putting on. He also will remind President Trump that this is probably the largest, most complex trading relationship in the world. It's almost evenly balanced. In fact, it's heavily in the U.S. favor because they receive our raw materials, which they turn into jobs. So they're well advantaged from this. Not only that, but we have a large defense security relationship with America. There's no other country in NORAD except Canada. There's no other place in the world where the United States would have less of a military presence than the U.S.-Canada border. So we've always had their back, and we will continue to be part of any security and security pact that is created. So I think we need to remind them of all of those important features of the relationship, which accrue to the very strong benefit of the United States of America.
Do you think just reminding them is enough? Because, people look at this and they often say that U.S. President Donald Trump needs a win from this. So, is it that he would finally admit that some of these things are actually benefiting the U.S.? Or do you think that Canada might be giving him something in exchange for what we might see on Monday?
Trump's claim that Canada will be very happy with any eventual deal is particularly revealing. This suggests Trump is already preparing to make significant concessions to Canada while trying to spin it as a victory for American workers. But anyone paying attention can see through this obvious attempt at face-saving. When you start a trade war promising to extract major concessions from your trading partner, and you end up having to promise they'll be very happy with the deal, you've essentially admitted you've achieved nothing. The broader implications of Trump's trade war failure extend far beyond the U.S.-Canada relationship. Other countries are watching how Trump's bullying tactics have backfired spectacularly with one of America's closest allies. If Trump can't successfully intimidate Canada, a country that sells 75% of its exports to the United States, what hope does he have of successfully pressuring China, the European Union, or other major trading partners? This failed trade strategy is also undermining America's broader economic competitiveness. While Trump has been wasting time and resources on pointless trade wars with allies, other countries have been building stronger economic partnerships and more efficient supply chains. The United States is increasingly isolated in the global economy, not because other countries are ganging up on America, but because Trump's policies are actively pushing away natural partners and allies. The most damaging aspect of Trump's approach is how it's destroyed trust in American trade relationships. Even if Trump eventually backs down and removes these tariffs, the damage to America's reputation as a reliable trading partner has already been done. Countries that have been targeted by Trump's arbitrary tariffs will think twice before making long-term investments that depend on stable trade relationships with the United States. Carney's measured response to Trump's aggression has also demonstrated to other world leaders how to handle the American president's bullying tactics. Rather than escalating tensions or responding with equally destructive policies, Carney has maintained dignity while waiting for Trump's self-defeating strategy to collapse under its own weight. This approach has made Canada look like the mature, responsible partner in this relationship, while Trump appears increasingly erratic and destructive. The fact that Trump felt compelled to repeatedly praise Carney during their meeting, calling him a strong leader and a tough negotiator, reveals just how much Trump respects leaders who don't cave to his pressure tactics. Trump may talk tough about trade wars and winning, but he clearly admires leaders who can stand up to his bullying without losing their composure. As this trade dispute drags on past deadlines and continues to hurt both economies, it's becoming increasingly clear that Trump's approach has been a complete disaster. The president who promised to make America great again through superior deal-making has instead weakened America's position in the global economy while damaging relationships with crucial allies. The ultimate irony is that Trump's trade war with Canada has achieved the exact opposite of what he claimed to want. Instead of bringing jobs back to America, it's made American businesses less competitive. Instead of strengthening America's negotiating position, it's revealed Trump's fundamental weakness as a dealmaker. Instead of making America great again, it's made America look petty, unreliable, and economically incompetent on the world stage. When this trade war eventually ends, and it will end because the economic pressure on both sides is unsustainable, Trump will try to claim victory regardless of the actual terms. But the real winner will be Carney, who managed to expose Trump's weakness while maintaining Canada's dignity and economic interests. The world has now seen that Trump's tough talk about trade wars is just another example of his tendency to create problems he can't solve, make promises he can't keep, and blame others for his own failures. The meeting between Trump and Carney wasn't a negotiation between equals. It was a masterclass in how a competent leader handles an incompetent bully. And based on what we witnessed, it's clear who came out on top.